Joining me now to discuss the potential impacts of a resumption of face-to-face classes is Dr. Kim Weeden. She's the professor of sociology at Cornell University and the author of a paper analyzing this very issue. Dr. Weeden, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So first of all, the research is really interesting, and there isn't a lot of research on this topic. It's uncharted waters, really, for everyone going through this now. But colleges, as you found in your research, have thousands of students. We interact with so many people, either directly or indirectly, every day. What has the research told you about a fall reopening amid COVID-19?
So we were really interested in how students are connected via their courses, recognizing there's lots of different ways that students are connected. You interact with each other in your residence halls and in your courses, in the library, on the quad, and so forth. And we were really interested in the extent to which students came into contact with each other just through their courses. And essentially we found that Cornell, and we suspect many other universities as well, are really what's known as a small world. And essentially what that means is that the connections between students are very, very tight. It doesn't take too many handshakes, as they say, or steps between students to reach any other student on a college campus, just by virtue of being in the same courses together. And the implications of this for a fall reopening, frankly, are a little bit discouraging, we thought, partly because there's so much uncertainty on what's going to happen with the course of the virus, with the availability of testing and so forth. But at least if you're just looking at sort of these campus enrollment networks, there's enormous potential for a virus to spread simply by virtue of students being in the same classes together.
That's very interesting. And one of the ideas floating around some universities is the consideration of a hybrid reopening, meaning for people who aren't too familiar with it, some students take classes online, some are in class for face-to-face learning. Would that hybrid reopening be a viable option for universities to combat the spread?
Yeah, we're still looking into that. We looked at a model where you just took out the courses that are 100 students or more, and you taught those online, and the rest of them would be taught face-to-face. Just to give you some context, 100 students at Cornell is about the top 5 percentile of classes, so this is a pretty big class, unusual for a place like Cornell with 15,000 undergraduates. We found that that didn't really break apart the network too much. More recently, and this is not in the working paper, but more recently we've looked at a threshold of 30 students or more. And it turns out that that actually does help to break apart the network, and it increases the distance between students by an appreciable amount. At some level, it's above our pay grade to determine whether that's a risk that universities should take or not. But our research suggests that there may be some viability to a hybrid model, but it kind of depends on how where you want to draw that threshold and the extent to which you can teach some courses online and other courses face to face under the technological availability and so forth. Another thing that to keep in mind too is that we also have to make accommodations for students with pre-existing conditions and faculty with pre-existing conditions. And that's something to consider that we just really can't look at with course enrollment networks.
And Boston University is one of the colleges leaning toward an in-person opening. Michigan State, California State at Fullerton, they plan to start online. Your university, Cornell, they say no decision is expected until June. In your professional opinion, how do you think university administrators should handle the decision of reopening and balance that reopening and public health?
Yeah, it is a really difficult decision, in part because part of what makes universities such great places is these connections between students and that intellectual vibrancy and that sort of sharing in ideas and other things that can happen through these face-to-face networks. I think that at least at Cornell, the administration is taking a look at some of the data. So I'm actually sitting on a task force that's looking at some of these enrollment data. But there's also all sorts of other considerations, like residence halls, for example, as being a place where there's a lot of contact between students. And I think that right at the moment, everybody wants to know. Faculty, as a faculty member, I want to know what is going to happen next fall. My son is actually a senior in high school, and he wants to know what's going to happen next fall. But at some level, I think it's a little bit too soon to tell and to make that decision. But certainly within the next month, you're going to see a lot of universities sort of planning and announcing decisions about how they're going to handle a reopening in fall.